Hola amigos, and welcome back to another episode of La Vida Verde podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Human. We are here at Finca Vida Verde. Today is a very special episode. It's going to be a part 1 of 2 in a conversation we're having with Carlotta Rinaldi. It's our first 2-part series. We're not going to release them one after another, but you will get a second part with Carlotta because we're talking about conscious motherhood. Carlotta is a conscious mother of 3. 2 of them were home births, one of them at a hospital. She is a family therapist. She is very passionate about therapeutic astrology and psychometric assessments. And she is my neighbor here down the road in La Covia. It's going to be a great conversation. So stick around. We hope you enjoy. Welcome to the podcast, Carlotta Rinaldi.
Carlotta Rinaldi.
Oh, pardon. Let's start over.
I thought it was funny to do that.
All right. Okay, Carlotta Rinaldi.
Great to be here.
Okay.
I'm so happy to be here.
It's an honor. Recently, we've been friends for a couple years now, but recently, just immediately, you helped me through moving through some stuff and emotional, personal stuff, and I just want to, first of all, thank you for that, for being supportive, and also just really helped me really get to know you a little bit better and your depth. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. So,
me too. Thank you for having me here.
Okay, welcome. Yeah. Okay. So Carlotta is my neighbor in La Ecovia. Her husband Oli, and they have 3 kids.
Yeah.
They are Darlia, Northy, and Leilani.
Yes. Perfect.
I've only met one time, Leilani. And so I guess let's start with the beginning. You were born in Verona, right? In Rome?
So
Or,
I was born,
Italy?
in a little sort of city near Verona, Mantova, in the north. And I spent there the first 15 years of my life. And then as soon as I could, I basically left. And I managed to study abroad in the States, near Washington, D.C. when I was 15. And lived with a host family there. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I was fortunate enough to be able to have enough credits to apply for university without telling my parents. And so I actually applied when I was 16 at the end to a few universities. And I got into Boston College. And when I got the letter of acceptance, I told my dad, here you go. This is an amazing opportunity, to continue and further my education here and study communications. And I was, lucky enough that my family could support me financially. And so I started a year early. I was 17 when I started BC. And then finishing university, I was working in public relations, moved to London, met my current husband, Ollie.
Who I love, by the way.
Who at the time felt like a very British, type of guy with a very, very British family, beautiful, large family, which is all I ever wanted. Mm-hmm. Coming from a small Italian family, I had no cousins. And as a young girl, I always wanted the dream big family. And so,
is this an Italian thing? Because I don't know many people. I've never heard this before, but this is I've had this dream of the big family.
Absolutely. I think all of my friends had lots of cousins and big Christmas gatherings, and I was always alone, with my parents, my brother, who was 12 years older. And so when I met Ollie and I knew, I found out it was 4 of them and his parents were divorced. So he had even a bigger family. I was so excited. So part of the reason why I think I fell in love with him was also his family.
Okay.
And that got me really interested in family dynamics. And, I was always interested in that. But I think when I met him, I started learning more and more. And I ended up studying in London. I went to UCL and I studied psychology.
What's UCL?
University College London.
Mosquito.
And yeah, and I think through that, I learned about psychometrics, which are personality assessments, um, specifically on how to help individuals and organizations thrive and select the right talent.
Wow, so it's business
It
oriented.
was business oriented, and but I was coaching, so I was coaching individuals, and every time I would coach someone, they would end up talking to me about their childhood, you know, sort of issues and patterns and family dysfunctions. And so I thought, this is not enough. Like I didn't feel like I had enough skills to really support these people. And so through after the business psychology masters, I thought, okay, I understood the core is going deeper and actually becoming a psychotherapist. And so I moved to Australia. I went to the best Australian psychotherapy institute and did another master's in that. And
Wow.
and I was very, very inspired by the psychotherapy school and the teachers and my peers. And so I focused my dissertation on family therapy and on basically triangulation and the effects of parental triangulation during divorce
This is
on children.
this is so interesting because this word has been a theme in my world the last few
Yeah?
triangulating. I had never really thought
Ah,
about it before, but
yeah.
now it's like because I felt something similar in my relationship. I had another friend who told me relationship where triangulating is like when there's a third kind of element that kind of affects the experience. It's not just about you and one other person. It's
No.
about all, there might be like a family or a
It
something.
happens a lot in relationships,
Uh-huh.
in, families, and it's so toxic because, especially children end up getting caught in the middle and being used by one parent or the other
Right. With
to get
divorces.
to get back at the other person. Divorce in itself is not an issue. Is the issue is, the conflicted, divorces that have like so much yeah, drama, like and yeah, like that's gonna have long-term effects on the children.
Mm.
If you do a conscious divorce, like I know
Separating.
people that have
Yeah.
here
Uh-huh.
actually in Ecovia.
Uh-huh.
That's it's actually beautiful. You're teaching your children a lesson, but if you can't do that, then it can have really long-term effects. So I was studying the long-term effects.
So that's right. Okay, so I guess all this is like making me want to ask you, and I hope this isn't too
Yeah,
personal, but like, would you share like what was your childhood? Because we want to talk about motherhood. I
yeah,
know we want to talk about motherhood,
yeah,
and we're talking about family dynamics and
yeah.
therapy. Would you share a little bit like growing up?
Yeah,
Is
absolutely.
that what drove you to want to study this, or?
So I think what drove me to get deeper into this was actually my desire to help my husband's family
Okay.
more than my own. I mean, my parents are still together. I, as most of us, had my own issues growing up.
Like you'd say regular problems, or?
I think like I was born kind of knowing about pain, knowing about suffering.
Hmm.
And I'm going to bring up something that I'm really interested in this moment, which is astrology. So my moon is in Scorpio and my sun is in Scorpio. And when the moon is in Scorpio, usually means that a child is born into a very difficult and painful world.
Hmm.
Either the mother was struggling during pregnancy or there was some major trauma that happened when the child was born.
Uh-huh.
And I definitely felt like that. As a child, I felt like I was put in sort of second place
To your brother.
by by my mother, actually because of my father. So not so much my brother. My brother was 12 years older, but my mother would. My father was another child for her, so she would
Hmm.
leave me since I was born with the nanny for
Hmm.
like a month, like at a time, and I
Wow.
wouldn't see her,
Wow.
and I couldn't reach her. Even when I was like a little bit older and I had an understanding of telephones, couldn't, there wasn't mobiles yet, or there were only a few, and I just couldn't reach her. So I would feel so alone, and I was grieving,
Wow.
the
At what
loss.
at what age was this?
Like from when I was born, but I think I started feeling it a lot during school days, like when your awareness, you're more aware. And so I think from 6 onwards, I started really feeling it. And so I think that led me to try and rely, on myself,
Of course.
and because I felt like, yeah, I couldn't quite rely on her. And
Hmm.
but anyway, so my parents were always together, but so I didn't experience divorce,
Sure.
but I did experience this grief of abandonment.
Hmm.
And I think in a way leaving like my family at 14, 15,
Because that's when you came to the States.
yeah, I think that decision was kind of like, in a way, there was a part of me that wanted to prove to myself that I can do it alone. Like, I don't need anyone. I can get away, um, and perfectly be self-sufficient,
Hmm.
and I don't need them. Yeah.
Wow, and so you've studied. I mean, this. I'm sorry if that's too personal, but I feel like
No,
it's
no,
it's a
no.
super
I love
important.
personal.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scorpio moon.
Yeah.
I feel like it's important because this is part of your story, and like as you have this desire to help people, I'm
Yes.
like, where does that come from? But you
Absolutely.
said it also from Oli's
Yeah.
family.
So I think like when I was in university and in the States, I started having obviously the same wounds, get triggered and reopened in attachment. It's called, attachment patterns and style. So my insecure attachment that I had with my mother got triggered in university. And so by like,
Boyfriends.
yeah,
Hmm.
like, which weren't even boyfriends, but were like,
Lovers.
like
College lovers.
some
Okay. Never.
people that I fancied, and
Hmm.
that I wish that maybe could be my boyfriend. And so
Crushes.
crushes and, yeah,
Okay.
relationships, like.
Got it. Got it.
And I really, really, really struggled through these, because it was every time like the abandonment would come back up. And then I would, if my friends went through it, I was the person that was trying to help everyone to, like, because by helping others, I was helping myself to go
Hmm.
through it.
Uh-huh.
So I was the resource person for a lot of these, like,
Hmm.
friends, like family issues and breakups, romantic breakups. I was that. And I was actually, funny enough, I forgot about this, but I was an international assistant.
Uh-huh.
So I was a leader of this group called International Assistant Program, where anyone coming from abroad, like we had like like a program to help them settle.
Uh-huh.
So I was in charge of all the international students at Boston College,
Wow.
and I loved it. I loved it so much. And helping them again was helping myself. And then when I met Ollie, I was 22.
Mm-hmm.
He was telling me and struggling through the relationship. He was triangulated in his parents were divorced, and divorced when he was 10,
Uh-huh.
and still were having, they weren't really speaking to each other. So I was very driven to help them, to help
Mm-hmm.
his family, help his siblings, his younger siblings. At the time, one sibling was 10, one sibling was like 13.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spent a lot of time. I think the first 3 years, I spent a lot of time focusing on how can I help,
Mm-hmm.
um, and which is why I then studied therapy, because I have this desire to actually be skilled at it.
So what drove, yeah, and then you said you studied that in Australia. So what
Yes.
what drove you guys to Australia? You were already married at that point, or?
So we weren't married, no, but Australia to us, Australia was. I always say we have a love affair. I have a love affair with Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Australia is always gonna be in my heart. I'm always gonna love Australia. I think it's the nature. It's a little bit of Costa Rica, but Costa Rica is like, it's like much more untouched, right? But Australia is like the freedom. that you have when you come to a new place. You can completely reinvent yourself.
Sure.
And I felt free to just be more raw, and I felt boxed, very much. Hence why I left Italy in the first place. And then I left again. So obviously there's a pattern here. I left again in England because I felt boxed. After 3 years of trying with Ollie's family, I needed like freedom to express myself and to, I don't know, like be more in wilderness and I was young, I was only like 25, 24, 20, yeah, 23, 24. And yeah, the people of Australia, the beaches, the food, it's just incredible for young people.
So you guys, okay, so you studied the
Psychotherapy, counseling and psychotherapy.
Geared towards businesses originally.
So originally it was more like coaching and psychometric assessments geared towards businesses.
Right.
And then that evolved into, I'm going to go deeper into psychotherapy for families, young people, couples, relationships.
Right. And that's amazing. And so then when you had your first child, where?
So,
because we want to talk, we want to get into motherhood. I know I want to
motherhood, absolutely. So I actually had my first child when we moved back to England. Ollie became quite ill, physically ill in Australia because he was trading at the time on the European time zone on the markets. So he was awake nights, and he started becoming, like after a year of doing that, he broke down.
Wow.
So we had to leave. Because of his work, we came back to Europe. And actually, as soon as we came back to Europe, I got pregnant.
Okay.
With Dahlia. And so Dahlia was born when I was 29. And again, at the time, we started living in a kind of conscious community town that is quite famous, called Totnes. As the transition town movement was born in Totnes.
Okay.
And it's basically all about not having, having like alternative shops and less of the big chains or no big chains, and alternative schooling. So that's where Dahlia was born. And at the time, because of wanting to be more authentic in the way we were living, and sort of we were individuating from our families of origin, I decided I'm gonna have a home birth with my first child, and which wasn't the norm in our group, in our circle at the time.
Hospitals,
100%. Again, my family and Ollie's families, I would say a little bit more conservative.
Traditional. Sure.
So,
which actually, I think conservative works because traditionally people would have babies at home.
Absolutely. It's yeah, that's the way it should be. And
modern traditional, I guess you would say.
yes, modern traditional. And so I was very much kind of pressured not to go down this route. But I would say especially by my family more than his. My mom is very fearful, and she's really a doctor.
She's really a doctor.
She just loves doctors. She's,
Is she a doctor?
She's not a doctor.
Okay,
but
so she's not.
I think she wishes. My grandmother was supposed to be a pharmacist, and my mom is all about.
She loves medicine.
She loves medicine.
Okay.
Absolutely. Loves it. And so it's interesting that I had the whole world against me. No one was supporting me. Ollie was super supportive. This is all I needed at the time. I did a hypnobirthing course online.
Okay.
Started by someone who now is, quite really well known in England.
What is hypnobirthing?
Hypnobirthing means to basically there's a lot of techniques, and just becoming more aware of your of what's going on in your body, and be more conscious. It's conscious birthing. So be more conscious of what's going through, during the pregnancy, and especially during labor, and using certain techniques like, breathing and visualizations and sounds that help you to stay in tune, help you to stay grounded, help you to stay positive, and basically increase the oxytocin in your body. And more than the oxytocin is mentally help you to stay like focused, because it's actually, that's the game. Like 80% of it is up here. And I won't say 100%, because for sure there's so many of us that physically, maybe cannot have a natural birth. Maybe they need the intervention that we're very fortunate to be able to have of, a hospital. But unfortunately, that's become the norm, and it's been driven by fear. It's like governments and hospitals, they've been using fear. They've been installing fear into us, especially into women, that, we cannot do something that we're born to do. And it was a very apparent, I was, again, very fortunate because Ollie was supporting me in this. But I started learning about hypnobirthing, and I was like, you know what, like, it's such a powerful tool that if we could spread it and at least like raise the awareness of, the power of our bodies and the power of our minds, because we can literally, if a baby's in the wrong position, we can move the baby. We can talk to the baby inside of us and help the child, help the baby move. Like, I've experienced that.
Wow.
Like, it's unbelievable, the power of the mind.
Did you have that with Dahlia?
So Dahlia was my first, you're a little bit, I would say, like, there's less practice.
Right.
So,
but it helped. Do you feel like the
hypnobirthing definitely helped. There was an amazing midwife. England has a great national healthcare system, the NHS, that supports home births.
Great.
So I had like a free.
Amazing.
Didn't have to pay anything.
Amazing.
Zero. They came, 2 of them. And so they really helped to keep the energy calm. And I had a birthing pool.
Oh, amazing.
So that was amazing. But with Leilani, she was born 3 months ago, and she was in the wrong position, meaning a less easy position to be, to birth.
Was she a home birth as well?
Yes.
Where was she?
Here in Ecovia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in our house.
Amazing.
And she was slightly in the slightly wrong position. She wasn't upside down, but she was kind of like this, which is dangerous for the neck and here coming out. Cord
can get.
Yeah, and also it's just like, it can be dangerous for this part. And I talked to her. Like, the midwife came, she examined me, and she said, she's in the wrong position. And I was like, well, I don't want to go to the hospital an hour away, and I want to have my home birth. I don't want to, pay. Here in Costa Rica, you have to pay a lot to have babies.
You do?
A lot.
I didn't know that.
A lot.
Okay. Noted.
Noted.
Coming here to have a baby, it costs a lot.
Well, you can get insurance. That's the thing, is you can get insurance, but you have to get insurance like months before you get pregnant.
But home births are legal here, right?
Home births is a tricky topic. They're not really encouraged. They're not encouraged in Costa Rica. Costa Rica is quite behind on this, unfortunately. There's a lot of midwives that do this work, but they're not supported to do it.
Not by the government.
No.
Right.
And so if you want to have a baby in the hospital, it can cost up to $10,000, which I know for Americans is actually normal, but for me, coming from the UK, it's not.
I've always wanted kids. I will one day, I'm sure, but never had to think about all this before.
Yeah, if you get insurance like 3 months before, then you can have it covered before you get pregnant. But
good to know.
Yeah, it's a good tip.
3 months before you get pregnant?
Like a few months before, like, even more than 3 months, because it can't be a precondition, because otherwise they know, oh, she's getting insurance because she wants, to get the hospital birth covered.
Got it.
But yeah, so when the midwife examined me, she was like, oh, she's in the wrong position. And I thought, obviously, in that moment, you need to be very, very optimistic and positive. Because as soon as you let fear come in to you, into your mind, your body knows it and slows down the process. And actually, like, it's unreal. Like, your body, like, works in a way that it will slow down labor, which means that you're gonna take a lot longer, right? And it's like a marathon. Your body can only go for a certain amount of time and hours. The clock ticks. Like, that's why a lot of women get to like 12 hours and they're like, I can't do this anymore. Because it's like so strenuous to have constant contractions, in the body for that long. That's why a lot of women end up, and I mean, there's many other reasons, but certainly the mindset. So when the midwife looked at me and said, your baby's in the wrong position, first of all, I didn't like that she said that to me, because I knew the impact of her saying that to me. So I think I think it would have been better that she told Ollie in private, and that Ollie like spoke to me in a, encouraging way, rather than her looking at me like worried, because the
Fear.
worry comes to me. But I had done so much work by that point, because it was my third birth, months and months and months of preparation, that I knew, like, I need to, like, lock that out. I can't let that come into my mind. So I literally told her, like, can you please just go to the other room? Like, I need to be in my space with Ollie. And I talked to Leilani, and I said, please, like, please, you need to turn. You need to turn. We love you so much. We cannot wait to meet you. You need to turn. And I did some exercises, like going up and down the stairs, do lunges. And like within 20 minutes, she turned. She
Wow.
turned.
And
then after that, it was like 2 hours, and I managed. I mean, it taught me so much.
yeah, we don't. It's like ancient knowledge that we're like regaining. Like it's the intuition and like trusting our intuition and the intuition of our child. That's super powerful.
It's so powerful. I had a really good friend that is my neighbor in Ecovia, that she is incredibly in tune and with the mystical, elements, and she really helped me to tune into my baby and the days approaching birth. And we did a ceremony up in the birthing space, and thanks to her and some practices, ancient practices, like having a candle, like fire. You needed fire. You needed oxytocin again, so like happiness, excitement. So like she was pregnant. We were 4 weeks apart, and she had a baby blessing, like with her friends, and she included me, and it was literally the day of my birth.
Wow.
That morning she had the ceremony, and I didn't know she was gonna also include me into it, and she did, and I was so joyful, so grateful and happy, that is what put me into labor. And connection with Ollie, being together. We were sleeping separately for some time because of the kids, the younger kids.
Sure.
And we started sleeping again together, and that again, it was a message for Leilani, and it was, like a frequency that I needed to be in. And belief, like the belief that everything happens at the right time. And I wrote it in the birthing room. And what's so special about Leilani's birth was that she was born, her basically the music, we had a playlist of 60 songs.
I know you guys love music so much.
And we had this playlist, and that played throughout the labor. And the song, 2 songs came out.
Uh-huh.
at the moment of pushing Leilani. And the first song is If Ever, If Ever, Jack Johnson
Okay.
and Paula something. It's a Hawaiian
A fugu.
song, yes.
Uh-huh.
If ever.
I don't
Like,
know it, but now I
oh
have
my
to go
God.
listen to it.
It's such a beautiful song. And Leilani is a Hawaiian name.
Mm-hmm.
And the
You had
Hawaii
already chosen the name?
I had already chosen the name 6 months before.
Uh-huh.
That song came out. And that song is it's we play it together. I sing it and Ollie plays it on the guitar.
Oh, cool.
And the second song that came out, because I pushed for about 6 minutes, I would say. The second song was by Prince,
Uh-huh.
Purple Rain, which was our wedding song.
Oh, man.
So, Purple Rain,
Purple
Purple Rain.
Rain. I love Purple Rain.
I started dancing song.
It's like, that was a song you danced to.
Yeah.
And
And
that, so
it was that moment.
it was a good example of your love and like the love and the reminder of the connection that you
Yeah,
two
and like
have.
God put those two songs in the pushing in that moment when she came out, you know? And her astrology chart, her chart is unbelievable. And it brings together the whole family. Like her sun sign by 3 hours is Cancer, which is the sun sign of my daughter Dahlia.
Mm-hmm.
Her moon sign is Leo, which is the same moon sign as my son.
Mm-hmm.
And the ascendant is Pisces, which is the same as Ollie. And if you look at all the planets, the signature sign is Scorpio, which is my double Scorpio. She is like the bonding, she's bonding us all.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing your story. That's
Yeah.
so powerful. I'm learning this all for the first time, by the way. Like, I think many people are now. Do you know how many people are watching this? I mean, it's really beautiful, Carlotta. And I think
Thank you.
anyone who's like maybe I think this will help people who are, especially young women who are going to go through motherhood. I wish we had more time to like continue this conversation because this is a deep one.
Yeah.
But people can reach out to you. This is something you enjoy. You enjoy therapy.
Yeah, I mean it's therapeutic astrology, family therapy, therapeutic astrology. So using astrology to help families in a therapeutic, way. And also couples and relationships in general, because families is about relationships. It's my passion and my absolute core driver in my life.
I feel like there's a psychological element to the motherhood thing too, that like you clearly you have it very, I don't know, say mastered, but like you've got a lot of experience with it.
It's you can only, I think it's all about, like you said, experiencing. I'm fortunate enough to have had 3 children. I've actually had a hospital birth for my second, and I have learned so much about the power of the mind, the environment, the people you surround yourself with, your community. It's just, you can do it. You can birth your baby anywhere. It's you just need the right tools. You need to learn and understand how much your surrounding environment influences you and your mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to be prepared for it, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. I'm so grateful for you for coming up here.
Yeah.
This is Carlotta Rinaldi. And how can people find you?
Well, you can reach out to me on Instagram. I do have a website, carlottarinaldi.com.
What's your Instagram?
It's Carlotta Rinaldi Lambeth.
Carlotta Rinaldi Lambeth.
Because my husband's last name is Lambeth.
We'll post that on the podcast. And people can reach you for...
Yeah, I do. I really enjoy doing therapeutic sessions, obviously, and most of all, I love doing readings and doing specific readings to understand, the family dysfunctions. And so we do, we look at one child's chart, the other child's chart, the parents' chart together, and so then we can kind of see the whole landscape and see where, the dysfunctions are and where we can. We can help. Yeah.
This is just a little side note because we kind of have to wrap it up, but I just remembered Oli was actually volunteering here when he got the call from you.
He was.
That you were pregnant. And I remember The look on his face, like
It was a really big surprise.
he was
But
surprised.
everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely.
We arrived here in September, the second time. We came here in March the first time, but we were back here in September. And I think 2 weeks after arriving, big surprise, I was pregnant. But it really was, the journey I went through thanks to this pregnancy, I wouldn't have learned.
No.
If it
Yeah.
wasn't for this, I wouldn't have learned it.
I love the peace and like the serenity that surrounds you in this birth. So thank
Oh,
you.
thank
Yeah, no,
you.
I can. It's palpable. I can just say like I can feel it. I think yeah, Yvonne's shaking his head. He's like me
I'm really
too.
driven to support other women that want to go through this. I mean, obviously, we would love to have a
Birthing
natural
center.
birthing center
Yeah.
here in the new Ecovilla. And, it's definitely a project that a few of us have in our hearts. So hopefully we can make it happen in the next couple years.
And people can reach you if they want to support that project.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Carlotta Rinaldi, thank you so much, love.
Grazie.
Grazie, grazie. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. I'm Matthew Human. This is La Vida Verde podcast. We release episodes every Tuesday. You can watch us on YouTube at La Vida Verde podcast. We're also on Spotify, on Apple Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at Finca Vida Verde CR. If you want to support these kinds of conversations, please go check out our Patreon, patreon.com/. La Vida Verde podcast. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Carlotta.
Thank you.